that was never a kind of a premeditated thing that I tried to do. It was just this wild connection, as it is in all of the other scenes that we've got, gay, straight, whatever. We've all got these types of clubs and events and things that we associate ourselves with. But now that image is so potent, and we've carried that through for so many years, and it's who we are. You think of Priest, not only think of the metal, you think of how the band looks, and especially yours truly on the mic.
The stately homo of heavy metal.
Thank you, Quentin Crisp. I met Quentin Crisp one time in San Diego. Yeah, that was amazing because I'd seen The Naked Civil Servant with the late, what's his name? Help me out, Chris. Great actor. Somebody shout his name out.
Yeah, well, if only they could. If only this wasn't pre-recorded, we'd be laughing.
Everybody knows who we're talking about. But I actually met him at a gay pride festival in San Diego. He was sitting by himself in a booth. I'm like, oh my God, that's Quentin Crisp. And I walked over and hi, Quentin, I'm a huge... Oh, very nice to meet you. He had this wonderful voice. And he actually signed a copy of his book, which I've kept treasured till today. So, yeah, that's why, in tongue-in-cheek, I call myself the stately homo of heavy metal, because I nicked that from Quentin Crisp.
Well, it's a definite worth the theft, I have to say. But look, when you came out it was live on MTV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That you did it. So you would have been mid-30s, I think it was, mid to late 30s, and you go into detail about what it was like, keeping that from people for so long. Because that was ultimately intimately kind of connected to your addiction to booze and drugs, and you go into that in a lot of detail.
Become more of a complete person. So that day was a life changer for me, and I think that as again I've done so many times as I can to encourage people, especially younger people. Hey, be who you are. Live your life on your terms. It's your life, and live it how you want to live it.
How big a deal was it in metal, and how big a deal in particular do you think it might have been for other gay people in the metal scene?
It was all about timing. I mean, how you do things at night and you can't sleep and you're thinking, if I'd have done this, if I'd have done that. I've always said that it would have been a more difficult situation for me to have come out as a gay man while I was in Priest. That sounds mad now, but that's how it was. Of metal, it was a very kind of alpha, macho, straight environment, and that's how it was then. Of course, it's now it's embracing. It's all embracing. That's what we are about the metal community. Having said that, I know there were gay metalheads coming to those early pre-shows because your gaydar goes off.
Yeah.
So. It's a great part of what we talk about in the book of self-love, acceptance, and tolerance.
But did you worry about losing fans at the time? Did the rest of the band?
Yeah, I did. Even again, there's a reference in one of the chapters where he suggested that I keep that as a low profile because of the potential damage it could do. So that, coupled with all of the other things that were going on, made it really difficult for me as a person. I don't think it affected my music that much until we got to the Turbo years, when it was a very, very difficult time for me with my addictions. But up until that point, I was focused and doing the thing that I love more than anything else, which is singing, being in this great metal band Judas Priest, and putting one step forward as you do and carry on, regardless of the circumstances.
I mean, in many ways, like you're saying, it's almost a non-story really now, isn't it? But we have to sort of take us back to that place, because we very easily say now, who cares that you're gay? But at the same time, it is a very central part of the book. You know, it keeps on coming back in many ways, doesn't it? It has sort of defined your life clearly in so many ways. In the fact that you had to hide it for so long, that the impact that had on you was enormous.
You know, again, as a young person, reading the Sunday papers, and you read about this gay man that's been thrown in jail and that gay man that's just been thrown in jail just for being a gay person. You know, it just seems too insane to think about, but that's how it was. And then the was it Prop 28 that was brought out at a time when we were as a gay movement was trying to grow and tell the world, look, this is just who we are. Well, just like restrictions on us, and sadly that we still have that in certain parts of the world today. But yeah, it was a different time, Chris. It was totally it was a lot of oppression, and you know, we clung on to each other as gay people to get through the difficulties.
Just one finally on that sort of area of your life. You did come close to your sexuality becoming public much earlier, didn't you? Which I had no idea about, that comes out in the book, because this is when you were arrested for cruising in California, which is a degree of good fortune in there.
A George Michael moment.
Yeah.
God bless you, George. Yeah. You know, the thing about cruising for me was, it really was a little bit sad, because I was desperate for contact with another person. You know, I couldn't find that type of intimacy unless I did that kind of thing. And it's rather poignant when you think about it. But those were the type of measures that I had to go to just be with somebody, even if it was only for a few moments, you know. And I'm not the only person that probably has gone through that type of experience, because of the loneliness involved while you're hidden away in the closet and protecting everybody but yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You were away from Judas Priest at the time that you announced you were gay, didn't you? And I just wondered, did you ever regret walking away at that time? Because for fans, that was a big deal, wasn't it? And that was an absolute high point for the band at that moment in time as well. How do you look back on that period?
Yeah. I was in a different place there professionally, especially associated with some of the business connections that I had at the time. You know, we finished that glorious Painkiller World Tour, which was a real slog. All of these tours that we do, they're incredibly long and tiring, but we do it because we love to do it, and we love to see our fans around the world. But prior to this Painkiller Tour, we'd gone through that really difficult time with the Reno trial. So we had that kind of filtering behind us in the background as we forged ahead with this incredible Painkiller record and tour. And, you know, hindsight, call it what you will, we should have said it, or I should have said at the end of that Painkiller tour, guys, I'm going to go off for a couple of years and just chill and maybe do some stuff, you know. But that's not the way it turned out. We just fell into this terrible miscommunication, and, you know, bands are like families. Sure. You fall out in your family. It took about 10 years for us to repair that, particularly on my part. But there you go, you know. At least I was able to get out of my system the things that I was searching for as a musician. I had my great times with the Fight Band, the 2 Project, the Halford Project. It all led me back to the place where I was destined to be as a musician, which is to be with, you know, Judas Priest.
And you talk about being a family. I mean, many metal fans will have Glenn Tipton down as one of their favourite guitarists of all time. Those blistering solos. He has Parkinson's, which has obviously impacted hugely on his ability to play. If you were playing, gigging at the moment, of course. How are things with him now? And will he be able to contribute anything in terms of riffs, solos for new material?
Well, thank you for asking about Glenn. He's a wonderfully strong, beautiful man. And before this horrible pandemic closed everything down, we were working over at Glenn's, writing material for the next Priest album, which will come out when it's ready. We've still got a long ways to go, but we're there. And Glenn was making contributions. He can still play the guitar, albeit in his own particular way. Parkinson's is a really cruel, terrible, horrible thing to happen to anybody. It happens to Glenn, it happened to my mom, you know, to see the physical debilitation that it creates, but your brain is still there. You're still functioning as a person, but in a guitar sense, it's very, very difficult for Glenn to play anything anymore. But like we have on this great song on the last Priest album, Firepower, No Surrender. You don't give in, you fight, 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 you know, and that's what Glenn's doing right now. Incidentally, he has this wonderful Glenn Tipton Parkinson's Foundation. We've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for Glenn over the years, and we're still continuing to do that. And some of the advances that are happening in Parkinson's now are extraordinary, but the funds and the finance to keep searching are vital. But he's doing great. Good. And, you know, he's beautiful. I can't wait to see him again and give him a hug.
Yeah, well, all our best to him, obviously. You mentioned the pandemic. What have you been doing through it? Because you were due to embark on a massive tour, weren't you? Was this the 50 Heavy Metal Years tour? Europe, North America, the whole lot? That's been pushed back. I mean, Lord only knows when anything like that's going to be happening again.
Everybody, Chris, everybody's been affected, haven't we, from all our walks of life, you know. Yes, we should be on the road right now, celebrating 50 years. We'll be doing it hopefully next year. When I was just reading this morning that there are some more vaccine trials happening. So it looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel, like there always is. But yeah, we've had to reschedule everything. Most bands have had to do that. You know, the knock-on effect is awful, especially for, you know, road crews that look after bands, and people that work at venues that bring the gear in and take the gear out. You know, they're all suffering economically as well. It's just been awful the way that we've ground to a halt to a great extent, but we've just got to battle on. You know, especially that British spirit. We'll get through it, and we'll get back to normal at some point.
This is it, isn't it? I was looking at a survey of the Musicians Union that was finding, this was out yesterday, 1/3 of professional British musicians are considering giving up their careers amid all of this because they just can't make it pay. And you just don't know who's in amongst that, do you? You know, in amongst that could have been a young kind of Judas Priest setup, you know, and that's the thing. But in terms of gigging again, there's been talk about people being set apart if they go to concerts, if they go to festivals, you know, being penned in and what have you. But that's not, how can that work with heavy metal? The whole thing of heavy metal is people just losing control and getting up close and personal.
Yeah, it's anything, isn't it? I mean, imagine Glastonbury if everybody was in a pen. It just wouldn't be the same. But we need to be squished up against each other and screaming and cheering and singing these beautiful songs that we love, and we'll do that. That's going to happen. You know, I'm 69 and I'm slowly inching towards 70, and age is just a number. I've seen and experienced so many incredible things in my life, and the vital part of what we do in music is being together en masse at a show, whether it's 100 people in a club or 100,000 people at a festival. You can't beat it, can you, Chris? You can't beat the thrill and the atmosphere. Well, we have to get that working, and it'll happen at some point in the not too distant future.
One thing that also needs to happen, maybe they can have a think about this because they've had a few months to sort it out, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What's going on here? What's going on? You've been nominated and you're still not in. I mean, this feels absolutely ridiculous. And everybody turns around and says, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, without those two, you know, great West Midlands bands, you would not have heavy metal as it is today. So, well, why aren't you there? Why aren't you in it? I don't
know. I don't know if it's politics or whatever. I really don't know. It would be a great place. I mean, I've always referenced it. I know it's an American kind of institution, but it is kind of a big deal because you're in amongst your peers. It's a very significant place to be put into, and we've been pushing and pushing for more metal. We need more metal in there, you know. It's the Rock and and Roll Hall of Fame, including metal music, and our mate Sabbath are in there. So why not Priest? Why not Maiden? Why not Motorhead? All of these great British bands, you know, they need to be recognised in the esteemed halls of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And look, I know our time is almost over, but I'm kind of trying to picture what you're going to go back to doing now. And I know from a couple of things I've read recently, one is you're shopping too much online, Rob.
Yeah,
this has got to stop. This has got to stop. From what I gather, you're out of control. And the other revelation is you're a huge RuPaul Drag Race fan. Is this right as well?
I am. Oh yeah, I am. I keep dropping the hints as massive and as subtle as they are. Ru, I want to be on your show. You know, I'll even put a frock on and shave my goatee off. But I'd love to be a judge. That's a great, fantastic show. Just a wonderful, professional show that means so much to everybody. I actually ordered another book the other day. Thomas is always like, oh God, not another cat T-shirt. You've got another. How many cat T-shirts do you need for my social Instagram? You know, Facebook, Cat Today. But so there's that. I'm gonna start the new Ken Follett book, which just came out. I love that. All the stuff that Ken Follett does, but particularly the Pillars of the Earth series. So I'm about to dive into that. And Netflix, you know, and do my nightly walks and my nightly swim. And I've, you know, got to keep this old metal body in shape for when we get back out to deal with these big worldwide tours that we do. So I'm blessed. I'm very, very blessed, and I'm grateful. And you know, life is good.
The metal legend Rob Halford, thanks this afternoon. Stay with us on 5 Live. Drive is next.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
BBC News at 4 o'clock. This is Nikki Cardwell. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak says unemployment will continue to rise despite new measures to protect jobs over the next 6 months. The government and employers will top up workers' wages, covering up to 2/3 of their hours. The employers' organisation, the CBI, has backed the plans. General Secretary of the TUC, Francis O'Grady, said more measures would be needed, but today's announcement was welcome.
We've been arguing for a long time for a German-style short-time working scheme so that employers can bring people back part-time, or at least for 1/3 of their hours under this scheme, and then any downtime when they're not working, there's a subsidy from the government and the employer. We'd like to see that downtime used for training and upskilling.
The Chancellor also announced that a similar scheme for the self-employed would be available. Labour said it would support any measures to safeguard jobs, but accused the government of acting too late. The SNP MP, Stuart Hosey, said he welcomed the avoidance of a cliff edge to the furlough scheme, but said its replacement did not go far enough.
The new scheme is far, far less generous, and I do suspect, because businesses are struggling with the lockdowns, with some of the other restrictions placed on them, I fear this is going to lead to a substantial increase in personal indebtedness, household indebtedness, and the loss of a great many jobs.
And planned rise in VAT has also been cancelled. It'll now be kept at 5% for the hospitality and tourism industries until the end of March next year. The latest NHS test and trace figures show that people are waiting longer for test results from England's community testing centres. Just over a quarter of these came back in 24 hours in the week up to the 16th of September. That's down from 1 in 3 last week and 2 in 3 the week before. Sheila Bird from the Royal Statistical Society says the delays are having an impact on attempts to control the virus.
It's quite possible just now that it may take 4 days of the period that I ought to be in quarantine before test and trace actually reaches me. So I've only got 10 days of my 14 days that I would actually be inside, even with the best will in the world.
Scottish students at universities in Scotland have been told that they will be breaking the law if they go home to visit their families. The warning from Scotland's National Clinical Director, Jason Leach, follows a coronavirus outbreak at Glasgow University, where now self-isolating. But he said there was an exception for caring responsibilities. A teenager who was shot in the face earlier this month as he walked to school in Kesgrave in Suffolk has regained consciousness. The 15-year-old remains in intensive care at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. Another 15-year-old boy has been charged with attempted murder and has been remanded in custody. He'll appear at Ipswich Crown Court in December. BBC News, it's 3 minutes past 4.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
I'll start with the M20 in Kent. So it's closed on the coastbound side between Junction 8.
I think...
It's an auspicious start to the programme, isn't it?
Orna's taken the wrong turn at the roundabout. Are you there?
It keeps...
What? Norman Collier. Wait.
It's a reference for the kids.
We'll get Orna back later.
Good.
Orna, send a pigeon with any important news and I'll read it out. She's gone. Oh. Right, Orna, hello everyone. Hello.
Hi, we're here.
Start to the show.
It's all fine.
How good to hear Rob Halford on with Chris there. Judas Priest, first band I ever saw live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was nice to hear that. I'm not really into that kind of music, but I just wanted it. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Lots to reflect on today, particularly the new scheme announced by Rishi Sunak. Help for those who are in work. He's supporting viable jobs, he says. What do you make of his latest scheme, the job support scheme? There is help for self-employed, business loans as well. Do get in touch today, 85058.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think. We're going to be talking about the new NHS app. Have you downloaded it yet? Obviously, a significant number of people need to make it work, to try and keep the pandemic in check. So if you have downloaded it, is it working? How have you found it? Tell us about that. We've also got some other things to talk about as well. It's the Mercury Prize later. The winner's not revealed until after 7, but we will hear a bit about who's in the runner and look forward to it later in the programme.
Yes, and we'll have news of that fella from Deadpool who wants to buy Wrexham.
That fella, Ryan Reynolds, is better than that fella from Deadpool. He's quite famous.
I'm trying to work out what's the character called in Deadpool. Is he called Deadpool?
I haven't seen him in Deadpool.
He looks like a superhero. If you'd love a superhero to buy your football team, who would it be and why? That would be interesting. 850.
It's a big step away from the potential buyer of your football team.
Oh yes, still not in the sports
bulletin. Well, people would just yeah, no, exactly. Well, people just want whoever's got the most money, surely.
Well,
that's what it comes down to.
Who's the richest super? Is Batman?
It's got to be Batman, surely, because Batman's got a massive mansion and staff. Is he called Albert? His butler. He's got a butler. He's got a butler. He can throw some money in the transfer tank, can't he?
Yes. Well, maybe someone might know better than us. Anyway, I don't know how we've got onto that little cul-de-sac straight away. Who's the richest superhero? Right. Also, Orna is not coming back. I've just said it officially. Orna is not coming back. So she's pulled over for the duration. We'll speak to her in half an hour. Welcome to Drive.
The Premier League.
On Saturday, Crystal Palace against Everton. Kickoffs at 3 p.m. And on Sunday, from 2, Spurs host Newcastle. And then from 4:30, Manchester City against Leicester. Plus, from 7, West Ham versus Wolves.
You'll hear the goals first here as they go in on BBC Radio 5 Live.
The Premier League on 5 Live.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live, available on the BBC Sounds app. 5 Live Drive with Tony Livesey and Anna Foster.
If we were talking earning potential of superheroes...
Oh, potential?
Earning potential.
Okay.
What about Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four? He's the fella who could stretch all his limbs. Because I'm thinking, what a window cleaning round he could have.
Yes, but there's not a right lot of money in window cleaning.
Depends how quick you got through it. If you could stretch, if you could do a skyscraper... In one afternoon,
maybe. But then if you were Spider-Man and got yourself involved in some Cirque du Soleil type show on you know what I mean, in Las Vegas.
I know you're not a fan of Cirque du Soleil.
I think they're very good. Anyway, something like that in Vegas, then you could make lots of money.
Very good. I don't mind, sir. It's been a lifeline for millions of workers whose jobs
doing at least a third of their normal hours.
As the economy reopens, it is fundamentally wrong to hold people in jobs that only exist inside the furlough. We need to create new opportunities and allow the economy to move forward. And that means supporting people to be in viable jobs which provide genuine security. As I've said throughout this crisis, I cannot save every business. I cannot save every job. No Chancellor could.
Well, there is support for those who are self-employed. The existing grant is to be extended on similar terms to the Job Support Scheme. And there'll be a pay-as-you-grow scheme for businesses that have taken out bounce-back loans, allowing them to reduce repayments by extending the terms from 6 to 10 years.
There are softer terms for the government's other loan schemes, and the VAT cut for hospitality and tourism has been extended for another 6 months as well. The Chancellor called the interventions radical. Labour's Shadow Chancellor, Anneliese Dodds, said they should have been announced sooner.
I've called for the introduction of a system of targeted wage support 40 times. That call has been rebuffed by this government 20 times. It's a relief this government have U-turned now. But we must be open and honest. That delay in introducing this new scheme will have impacted on businesses' confidence.
So the scheme is aimed at saving viable jobs. The implication being, when the Chancellor there said I can't save every job, is that some people will slip through the cracks in these schemes. Is that you, or are you feeling more confident? Certain business leaders have reacted positively today to the news. What are your thoughts? 85058 at BBC 5 Live. Let's look into some of the detail. 5 Live Money's Danny Hewson is with us. Hello, Danny.
Hello, Tony.
So very much the focus on viable jobs here.
Yes, I mean, it was interesting that Rishi Sunak was keen to point out that he could no longer support what he was calling zombie jobs. So those are the jobs which cannot continue without the support of the furlough scheme. So this new payment is very much aimed at those jobs which will exist in 3-6 months' time, and not those jobs that without the furlough support maybe just wouldn't exist at all.
Yeah, so those people who are on furlough at the moment but who are deemed not to be viable, or their jobs not to be viable, when furlough ends, that's it, is it? That's unemployment. I suppose, again, the implication here is that, and I've seen a phrase bandied around today, they need to accept that and start looking for alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the employer will have to follow a process and they will have to have a consultation on redundancy. But the message was clear. If you are on furlough and you cannot be brought back into work for that 33% at least of your hours, then the government just can't support you anymore. Now, in terms of whether businesses are happy about this or not, there's been quite mixed reaction, really. And I think for a lot of businesses, they're now going to have to get their calculators out and really figure out if it is worth them bringing back people part-time, because they'll be bringing back someone to work 33% of their hours and paying 55%. And we heard from for a number of people who are saying, you know, look, the problem with this is that it could be cheaper just to have somebody full-time rather than having 2 or 3 people part-time, because the contributions for an employer will be less. But you have the other sector, particularly the sector which is events and all of those kind of things, that they're not being able to reopen at all. And they're saying, look, effectively, you know, we have furloughed about 90 to 100% of our staff. There is no way that we can bring them back now. So you really are looking at huge amounts of job losses.
Danny, your line's not great. We'll let you go. I know you're coming back later on, actually. I'll tell you more on that in just a second, but that's 5 Live Money's Danny Hewson. Let's have a chat to Stuart. He works in the building sector. He's been on furlough since the scheme began. Hi, Stuart.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Yes, so Stuart, when you probably presumably sat down to listen to the Chancellor today, what were you hoping for, and what do you make of what he's had to say?
I was hoping for the magic unicorn at the end of the rainbow. It looked good. I took those proposals in this afternoon. I've put them forward. It's, in all honesty, it looks like my job is not going to be there because they don't really want you there for a third of the time and supporting you for half the time. But it looks like it'll good and it'll keep some people in employment. So whilst it's not good for me, it may be good for others. And I'm one of many, and it may save a few within that time. So.
Yeah, it's a scheme it's trying to encourage firms not to shed jobs needlessly, but possibly only those jobs which are sustainable in the short term. Do you imagine, Stuart, it's going to be quite a while before the demand for your kind of work is back to what it was pre-COVID?
There is demand out there. Some industries and some companies are just not coping with it, or they're losing big amounts of work. They're just unable to cope or recover, or they're just trying to break even. So, yeah, I mean, there is work out there. I'm sure I can find something and turn my hand to something else.
I'm looking at your notes, Stuart. I see that you were made redundant after the financial crash, and it took you 18 months to find a job. You must be dreading going through this process again.
It's not been this time I've got wife and kids. Last time it was just myself, and I was able to go off around and enjoy a little bit of the countryside or a bit of Europe. This time I've got to try and support them a little bit. We can survive otherwise, but I will do my endeavour at my best to find something to try and contribute to that, I think.
Just a final word, Stuart. When you took those proposals today, or the plans of the scheme from Rishi Sunak into your boss, what did they say exactly? Was it that criticism that they simply can't afford to pay that share?
I think they need to go away and look at it and understand it. But it might just be it's being released a little bit even too late, because we're under the minimum 20 looking at redundancies, and it's just come that late. I mean, there were people numbers of people being made redundant was 2 months ago, or a month ago, sorry, excuse me. So it's also depending on whether the company's flexible enough to try and retain people working hard, a third of a job at a time. If they want continuity, you need those people in full time, not a third of the time, which is difficult. I understand it.
It's as Danny said, there's a lot of calculations to be done. The government's calculation is that under furlough they were responsible for 80% of people's salaries for not working. Now their maximum outlay is 20%, so they're obviously got one eye on the taxpayer as well. Stuart, everyone listening to this will be hoping you A, you're not made redundant, but B, if you are, that you find work pretty soon. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you, and I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'll find something to do. So there's always something to do. Just got to look hard enough.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the attitude. Stuart, thank you. Thanks for that. I mentioned Danny from Five Live Money was coming back. Loads of you will have questions about this. It's fairly complicated, to be honest, and particularly if you're mixed up in the middle of all this, you will want answers. So Danny from Five Live Money will be with us. We're going to get an employment expert as well on the programme. So if you've got any questions, we'll put them to them. Let us know, 85058. We can't promise to answer them all, but we'll do our best to get through as many as we can.
Now tonight is the first night of an earlier call for last orders in pubs across England and Wales. They're closing at 10 o'clock from now on in an effort to curb the spread of coronavirus. The rule applies to restaurants as well. The hospitality sector in general will be restricted to table service only, so you can't get up and queue at the bar anymore, for example. Same rules are coming into force in Scotland from 10 o'clock tomorrow night. In Northern Ireland, ministers are meeting to discuss bringing in an 11 p.m. curfew on their hospitality sector as well. Ironically, the Great British Pub Awards are happening tonight as well. Catherine Bohm is the owner of the Dog and Parrot in Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. They're up for an award tonight. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, are you all right?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good. Which award are you up for?
The Community Mindfulness Award. It's one that they've brought in this year due to the lockdown and the restrictions on what's happened during COVID.
Oh, that's brilliant. So this is all the extra stuff that you've been doing, basically on top of being a pub.
Yes, that's right. We've been put up for an award by Glyn, who helps us with our Facebook page. He was a customer to start off with and become a very close friend, and he helps us with everything, and him and his wife put us forward because it's something that we wanted done personally, because I wouldn't put myself up for an award. I just do what I do.
Yeah,
that's it. Myself and my husband, we just do it to help the community out more than anything.
Yeah, and well, tell me about some of the things that you've been doing, Catherine, because you really do go above and beyond.
We do try to help out. During the lockdown, we helped customers. We did shopping for them, or we picked prescriptions up, or we did takeouts and deliveries. So we just try to do as much as we can. We've got majority of the customers' phone numbers, so we just checked on them that they're all right. So yes, it was a trying time, but we tried to be there during lockdown for the most vulnerable, really, and the ones that are isolating by themselves, that families aren't close by, that we might have been the only one that they'd see if we deliver some beer to them or a bit of shopping to them. So the majority of the customers have got our phone numbers anyway, so it was just sort of like an extension just to say thank you for them being really brilliant customers. Everybody that comes into the Dog and Parrot at Eastwood, the saying is on the wall actually, there's no strangers in here, only friends yet to meet, and that's a saying that we've had right from the word go. So everybody's become close friends with one another, and everybody was phoning one another to make sure that they're all okay. So yeah, it's very modest to say that it's to be put into the final 6, and we find out tonight. Then quite excited, very very nervous, but quite excited. Even if we don't win, just to get in the final 6 is an achievement in itself.
It is. To be recognised is brilliant. And I mean, we started talking, Catherine, about the fact that tonight is a 10 o'clock closing time for the first time. Is that, clarify for me, is that everybody out of the pub by 10? Is it last orders at 10? So you need to be locked up, cleaned down, everybody out?
The doors, restaurants, pubs, anybody in the hospitality trade, the door must be locked at 10 o'clock. So we're doing last orders at 9:15, which I think majority of the pubs and hospitality trade more than likely do last orders. That gives you 3/4 of an hour then to finish drinking. You can lock the doors and then carry on cleaning after the 10 o'clock, but no customers are to be on the premises after 10 o'clock, otherwise there will be fines.
Yeah. So that's England, because of course it's different everywhere. I think in Wales it's slightly different as well. And Catherine, I mean, what I find really interesting is people have talked about how much money or how much they'll potentially lose in takings by closing earlier, because apparently you sell, or the licensed trade, you sell more later in the evening. Is that the case for you?
We're a micro pub, so we're a little bit smaller. Our opening hours aren't going to be dramatically altered. We shut at 10 o'clock on a Thursday and a Sunday. Monday we shut between 6 and 7, and a Saturday and a Friday it's 11, so it's only going to be an hour difference Friday and Saturday for ourselves. But there's a lot of the big chain pubs and a lot of the bigger pubs do open till beyond 12 o'clock, some are 1 o'clock licences, so they will have a huge impact on losing 3 or 4 hours even on their licence every single night. So they will have probably a lot more impact than what it will do for us. We've been doing table service anyway from the 4th of July, but obviously that's now coming as law. So there also is going to be a double financial hit for them, because they can probably end up having to employ more staff.
Oh, and what about the other things that have been announced today? There's the continuation of the VAT reduction. That'll probably work well for you.
Yes, it will help us. Obviously, from 20% down to 5 is a big difference. I don't think that will take a lot out of how much we're going to lose with regards to losing the hours of people drinking, and also the hours that you're going to be spending on wages.
And what about your staff, Catherine? What's the situation with them?
They're all fine. I've got a lot of volunteer staff members. They're all on shorter hours, really. There's just 3 of us that are on full time. I have a lot of friends and family that help out at the pub as well. So, and some of our customers even volunteered to come and work for nothing when we reopened in July, just so we can get on board and make sure everything's okay. And the pub is still there for them. So they're sort of trying to give back a little bit for everything that was done during lockdown and what we've done as a community pub, because we are a huge community pub. We raised £10,500 for various charities last year. So that has obviously had an impact this year on the charity, how much we're raising. But we are still trying to do that as well in the background. So we are thinking about ways of helping charities out, even though we can't have charity events.
Yeah, that's great. Look, Catherine, huge good luck for tonight. We've got our fingers crossed for you.
Thank you.
I hope you win. That's Catherine Boehm, who's the owner of the Dog and Parrot in Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. So we were talking, so obviously Catherine being in Nottinghamshire is under the English rules, which are the door's locked and everybody's out at 10 o'clock. And we mentioned Wales is slightly different. So in Wales, the pubs don't need to close at 10, but they do need to stop serving alcohol at 10. Mark Drakeford, the Welsh First Minister, described it as being, basically, he said that will allow an orderly close rather than people rushing to drink up or eat up. So that's the difference between England and Wales on that.
That's a strange one, isn't it? Last orders at 9:15. I mean, if you're on your way home from work and you're nipping for a pint after work, a strange one to get your head around. Right, it's Drive on 5 Live. You know, we were talking about which kind of superhero might be the wealthiest.
We were, weren't we?
Yeah. A lot of people saying Iron Man. Rich says Iron Man, and Joe in Bedford says Iron Man is the richest superhero. End of.
Does it say why? I need a bit of background information.
They have fictional, companies that they belong to. Anyway, I've looked up. There's an actual list that's been produced. The Black Panther is the richest superhero, $500 billion. But Scrooge McDuck's in there at number 4.
And what's that based on?
Well, presumably, I don't know. No, but they have a backstory.
It's an arbitrary list.
The Iron Man's second, then it's Batman, then it's Scrooge McDuck, and Richie Rich is fifth.
Actually, Scrooge McDuck did have a big mansion that he lived in, and he was of a certain age, so he's clearly got bags of cash.
None of those are interested in buying Wrexham. Instead, it's this fella.
I love you, Wade Wilson. We can fight this.
You're right. The cancer's only my liver, lungs, prostate, and brain. All things I can live without.
What if I told you we can make you better? You're a fighter. We can give you abilities most men only dream of. Make you a superhero.
Yes, it's the plot of every single superhero movie you've ever seen in your life. That's Hollywood A-lister, potential non-league football owner now, Ryan Reynolds, in the Marvel movie Deadpool. It is bizarre. Wrexham have confirmed, though, that he and fellow actor Rob McElhenney are in talks to take control of the club, now owned by its own fans. We have a Wrexham fan who used to be on the team here at Drive. He's over the moon, to say the least. With
Hugh Henry's barely stopped tweeting since yesterday.
5 Live's Rowan Bridge is at Wrexham's famous racecourse ground now. Hello, Rowan.
Hello there. You couldn't make this stuff up, could you? 2 Hollywood actors set to buy Wrexham Football Club, of all places, and inject millions of pounds into the team. It's interesting. I was in the town earlier on, and the rumours have been swirling around for the past few days about a possible mystery buyer, which was indeed, as you say, confirmed last night. And the members of the fan-owned club have voted overwhelmingly for the talks to go ahead. The 2 actors are due to outline their plans at a special general meeting, and then the members are going to vote on the outline of a deal in what's been described as weeks rather than months. So there should be news on it quite soon.
Yeah, we mentioned Henry here, who used to be on the team here, now works on another programme, but he was saying all the fans, or the owners anyway, are due to have a Zoom call with Ryan Reynolds very shortly.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Ryan Reynolds talking to people in Wrexham. I mean, a Canadian who is a Hollywood A-lister decides to come to North Wales. Who would have thought?
So what are the fans saying then, Rowan?
It is the only thing they have been talking about in the town. I've been around the town all afternoon, and it is the single topic of conversation everywhere. Overwhelmingly, it's had a very positive response. There's been the odd concern about it no longer being fan-controlled, but overwhelmingly, there's a real sense of excitement, especially amongst those. There's a food stand here on the car park just outside the racecourse ground, and I was speaking to people there this afternoon.
Oh, what, Rick?
Sausage back.
I'm Wayne Jones, landlord of the Turf Hotel, which is the pub literally attached to the Wrexham's Racecourse Stadium.
Has there been anything other than Ryan Reynolds as a topic of conversation?
Absolutely not. Since 7 o'clock last night, right through till talking to you now this afternoon, it's been Ryan Reynolds constantly. People have got a smile on their face, and it's good to see.
Did you know who he was before?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, my wife's absolutely adores him. Seen the Deadpool films, seen a few other films. Yeah, I mean, listen, who doesn't? I would imagine there's very few people who don't know Ryan Reynolds are.
Hi, my name's Caroline Rooney, and I'm a massive Wrexham fan.
Are you a fan of Ryan Reynolds?
Yes, I am. More so now. We're going to all the matches.
But I gather you've got a bit of a soft spot for his business colleague as well.
Yes, Rob's my favourite. My two little girls go to the matches anyway with the dad, but I'll be going now too.
Presumably you've seen Deadpool, right?
Yes, I have, yes. It'd be great if we can, all the Halloween costumes will be with Deadpool with Wrexham FC on it.
Do you think for the next film he ought to have like a Wrexham logo on the back of his outfit?
Definitely, yes, 100%. Oh, got Mick?
Sausage back.
Kelly Jones.
Are you a Wrexham fan?
I am.
How big a Wrexham fan are you?
Massive.
What did you think when you heard the news?
I can't really say live on air what I thought last night, but yeah, absolutely fantastic, amazing news. I still think I'm dreaming, to be honest.
Why do you think he's interested in buying Wrexham Football Club?
I'm not sure. I read a little piece last night, and I think it's to do with maybe a little bit of history behind the club and the guy that's coming in with him. But I don't know. I don't know why, but I'm just happy.
Have you ever seen a Hollywood A-lister in Wrexham before?
No. I think this is our only chance.
I'll tell you what, he needs to glitz up his menu if all he can offer Ryan is a sausage back when he turns up on match day. What do we know why Wrexham? There is a lot of speculation, Rowan. What's the deal here?
Yeah, I mean, the club say that's a question for Ryan Reynolds to outline himself when he feels he wants to. I mean, they do have a storied history. The third oldest professional club in the world, the oldest in Wales, the oldest international stadium in the world, and there is something of a track record of stars buying into Welsh football clubs. One of the stars of the US version of The Office, Mindy Kaling, she's an investor in Swansea City, so it's not exactly without precedent.
OK, well, we'll watch with interest. Cheers, Rowan. Rowan Bridge there, who's in Wrexham today with the news that Ryan Reynolds may be taking over. Henry, again, our source of information, was telling me earlier that there is rumour now of a fly-on-the-wall documentary as part of the deal, so you wonder whether Hollywood's going to get its pound of flesh that way.
When you say source of information...
Yes.
I mean, he's a massive Wrexham fan.
Yes. Well, he's a co-owner. He's a fan owner.
Well, all right then.
So he knows a little bit. Anyway, thank you very much to Rowan for that. Look, keep your questions coming in. We are lining up our experts to talk in detail about the job support scheme and the help for self-employed. So if you've got any thoughts on that, 85058.
Yeah, and even if they're not questions, do let us know what the situation's like for you, because we're going to try and focus on what it means for everyone. Obviously, if you're in a job and you're on furlough, you might be concerned that when furlough comes to an end, your job might as well.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
New government measures have been set out to help millions of workers who risk losing their jobs as the furlough scheme ends next month. People will be able to return to work on shorter hours, with the government and employers together paying up to 2/3 of their wages over the next 6 months. A planned rise in VAT has also been cancelled. It will now be kept at 5% for the hospitality and tourism industries until the end of March next year. After months of delays, smartphone users in England and Wales can now download the NHS contact tracing app. It's designed to alert people that they may have been close to someone infected with COVID-19. And Sir David Attenborough has joined Instagram, using his first post to warn that saving our planet is now a communications challenge. Within an hour, he got more than 200,000 followers. Those are the headlines. Let's get the sport. Here's Katie Shanahan.
Afternoon, Anna. We'll start with the news that the government have announced a process to try and get fans back into sports stadia when it's safe to do so. They've built a team of sport, health and tech experts to explore a range of high-tech solutions which would allow spectators to return. Even though fans might not be expected back until March next year, the government are using this group to work closely with sports bodies and the Sport Grounds Safety Authority to ensure fans can return to sports stadia safely in the future. Well, the former Tottenham manager Harry Redknapp explains that the longer football continues without fans, the more likely lower league clubs are to suffer. Well, the National League are meeting today to discuss whether to start the season on the 3rd of October, but Redknapp believes more help should have come from the Premier League.
We've seen clubs, as I say before, the Berries going out of business. They're in an area full of Premier League clubs where it wouldn't have took an awful lot, for the Premier League clubs to have helped out, but I don't think the help was really forthcoming.
Motherwell manager Stephen Robinson says it's very disappointing that their supporters can't be at the ground to enjoy their European campaign. The Scottish Premiership side are to face Hapoel Be'er-Sheva from Israel in the 3rd round of qualifying for the Europa League.
It's so disappointing. We've waited so long to get into Europe, and then you're playing in empty stadiums. We try and keep this run going as long as we possibly can. Ultimately, we can get fans in to enjoy the success. They were part of the reason that we got the 3rd place last year.
Celtic, Aberdeen, Rangers and Tottenham are also in Europa League action tonight. 5 Live Sport will have commentary of Lincoln City v champions Liverpool in the 3rd round of the EFL Cup with build-up from 7. Now, rain has affected day 2 of the Bob Willis Trophy final between Somerset and Essex. Simon Mann is watching at Lords. And good news, I believe, Simon, as the covers are off and we're back underway.
Yeah, play has resumed here at Lords with Somerset 257.45, and they've had a really good day despite the bad weather we've had this afternoon, which has taken 35 overs out of the cricket. Byram is 110 not out, his first 100 for Somerset, and Overton is there on 60. They put together a century partnership, and Somerset, with 22 overs left in the day's play, at 257 for 5.
Thanks very much, Simon. And commentary continues over on Sports Extra, as you probably heard there, with coverage on the BBC Sport app and the iPlayer as well. Well, in other news, Cricket Australia say they are deeply saddened to hear that the former Australian batsman Dean Jones has died at the age of 59. He played 52 tests and 164 ODIs, as well as playing county cricket for Durham and Derbyshire. And the European Masters Snooker Tour rookie Peter Devlin has knocked out the 3-time world champion Mark Williams 5-4 in round 2. Devlin produced his first professional century in the final frame decider.
Wow, I mean, what a time to make a century, in a deciding frame against someone like that on a TV table is unbelievable.
As an amateur, Peter Devlin used to rap on YouTube. Britain's Liam Brodie has qualified for the French Open for the first time. He beat the Australian 12th seed Mark Polmans. And rugby union referee Joy Neville has been promoted to be the first female to do TMO at a Tier 1 men's international match. The former Ireland captain will be the TMO when Wales face Georgia and Scotland take on Fiji in the Autumn Nations Cup. And that's the latest from BBC Sport.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live on digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
Let's take a look at your travel news. We'll start with the M20, which is closed on the coastbound side for Operation Stack. That's when the lorries park up ahead of crossing the channel. So between Junction 8 at Leeds Castle and Junction 9 at Ashford, the queues are backing up from that closure to Junction 7 at Maidstone. Surrounding roads all around Maidstone, they're affected as well, people diverting. Now, all because of industrial action that's taking place at Calais. So it's having an effect on the ferries as well. There are no ferries going between Dover and Calais. They are running between Dover and Dunkirk, so you can use that as an alternative. But it's a massive problem, so traffic's backing up, and of course these sailings have been cancelled as well. Now the M25, anti-clockwise at Junction 22 St Albans to Junction 21A at St Albans. One lane's closed, that's to remove a mattress from the road. The A1M in Cambridgeshire, Junction 16 at Norman Cross, a breakdown in one of the lanes. The M4 is still closed in Wiltshire on the westbound side. This is left over from this morning, an accident. 17 at Chippenham to Junction 18 at Bath. It's been closed all day. No sign of any lanes reopening. Queues affecting the A46, and it's backing up to Junction 18 now as well. Also delays on the M6 at Warwickshire on the northbound side at Junction 1 for Rugby to Junction 2 for the M69. A lorry's having a tyre changed. And the A1 Western Bypass at Washington, a breakdown in one of the lanes. That's between the A194M and the Bowes Incline. Warner Merchant, 5 Live Travel.
5 Live Breakfast.
Wow, we have got loads on the plate.
The NHS tracing app, that has got you talking this morning. Rachel, please reassure people the NHS app is secure. I'm a cybersecurity expert. I have downloaded and will happily use it. This one here, though, says, Dave, your app is active and scanning. That's what it says once you've got it up and running.
This story, Hollywood superstar Ryan Reynolds might be buying non-league football club Wrexham. Let me read that again. Hollywood superstar Ryan Reynolds might be buying non-league football club Wrexham.
Amazingly, you got it right first time.
I know, it's a change for me, especially this morning.
5 Live Breakfast. Back tomorrow from 6.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Available on the BBC Sounds app. 5 Live Drive with Tony Livesey and Anna Foster.
Now, as you heard just there, people living in England and Wales are being urged to download the government's contact tracing app following its official release. NHS COVID-19, that's what it's called. It tells users to self-isolate for 14 days if it detects that they've been near someone who has the virus. It also has a check-in scanner to alert people if a venue they've visited is found to be an outbreak hotspot. That's the thing with a QR code that you scan as you go in the door. Here is the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock.
Downloading the app is good for you, but it's also good for your loved ones, it's good for your community. The more people who download it, the better it will be. And we have had to have certain technical specifications, that's understandable, but it has been but overall, for the vast majority of smartphone users, it's really simple to download.
Well, you can download the app from Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. If your phone's over 5 years old, though, it's unlikely to work. So assuming the app does work on your phone, if you do get an alert to self-isolate, that information will be kept secret, as similar apps already been launched in Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Download the Stop COVID NI app to help stop the spread of coronavirus. This app from our health service tells you automatically if you've been near someone who tests positive. It also tells others if you test positive, but will never know or share your identity or location. Most people spreading the virus don't know they have it. So the more people using the app, the more lives we save. As we go out more, let's all keep doing our bit. Download Stop COVID NI from your app store now.
Well, our correspondent Emma Vardy is in Belfast. Emma, hello.
Hi there.
How's it gone down there? What's the take-up like?
Well, Northern Ireland was the first part of the UK to get a contact tracing app. So ours came in on 30th of July, actually, so it's been in place for a couple of months now. Take up. So by the end of August, about more than 300,000 people had downloaded it. Latest figures look that it's still not quite over 400,000 people that have downloaded it. So that's still, I suppose, less than a quarter of the population of Northern Ireland. But, every time the political leaders here give press conferences, they're pushing it very hard, saying they're very pleased at the amount of downloads that there's been. There's certainly been, a number of people who've had a positive test. They've registered that on the app, and then that's alerted other people who may have been exposed to it. It is working to a degree, but of course it's also working in tandem with the more manual test and trace systems that are in place too.
Have there been any problems? I'm thinking of people refusing to download it. Is it just that they haven't heard about it? And how effective is it?
Well, it's definitely been well publicised, both through advertising and through, all the news output and the amount that sort of political leaders are always, urging people to download it. But if you look at the numbers, of course, that it shows some people aren't doing it. But they always said, the Chief Digital Information Officer in Northern Ireland said at the time, he said, look, we understand some people won't want to use it, that's okay, but doing so, then it will have some effect. So basically, if somebody gets a positive COVID test, then they get a code on a text message, they upload that to the app, and then anonymously the app will alert anybody else that it's registered as being in proximity to that person who could have been exposed, all done through Bluetooth. Those people will be alerted anonymously. So no, you'll never get to find out, when and where it was. You'll just get this notification. But of course, there are people who just don't like the idea that they're somehow being tracked. Although, there's lots of reassurance around this app that the data is there to protect you and that it's not actually, it's all being used anonymously.
So effectively, it says your phone was near a phone of someone who's been contaminated, and therefore you are at risk. That's what it's saying.
Yeah, exactly, and you don't get to know any more about it than that, but that's enough information for you to then self-isolate until you get a test and find out the result of that. And here they're also developing a new app for under 18s, because at the moment you have to be over 18 to develop this app, but Northern Ireland's going to get one for young people with phones too.
OK, good stuff. Emma, thank you. Emma Vardy in Belfast. What do you make of that then? Would you download the app 85058 at BBC 5 Live?
We asked at the start of the programme how you got on with it. Alan says it's downloaded. My wife works in the local supermarket though, so I wonder how long it's going to be before she's told to self-isolate. I suppose this is it. If you work in a place where there's lots of traffic, lots of people, it might affect you. Neville as well, and this is a good question. This has been around for a little while. Neville, who's stuck in a traffic jam in Ashford in Kent, says I've downloaded the app and I'm stuck in traffic. So is that app going to think that I'm close enough to somebody who might test positive who's in the car next to me and asked to isolate even though I was never in contact?
And also, does it understand how long you've been in proximity to that phone? Because it's about close contact, isn't it? If you just brush past it in the street, the phone of someone who's contaminated, does the app?
Do more to support people from black and other minority ethnic backgrounds after a highly critical report said that too little was being done. Professor Emmanuel Ogbonna from Cardiff University found that despite a much higher death rate from COVID-19 among people from those backgrounds, proper records weren't being kept, and other problems included persistent racism and a lack of suitable healthcare. Well, we can talk to Professor Emmanuel Ogbonna now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just sort of highlighted a couple of issues there, but please talk us through your main findings.
Okay, so what we found was that there were factors that were contributing to the disproportionate deaths from COVID-19 for members of the BAME communities. And you've mentioned some of them. But the most important one, because I don't think you have so long for me, so I'm going to focus on the most important factors. The most important factors that ran through all the themes that we looked at were the experiences of racism and the structural and systemic inequality that was really embedded in a culture of racism in Wales and in the rest of the UK. So these were the substantive findings in our work.
And how did that show itself? What kind of problems with treatment, with the way that people were dealt with, did you identify?
So what we found was that the racism was contributing and stress that were in sort of making them susceptible to the worst excesses of the disease. So it wasn't necessarily that people were dying because of their ethnicity as such. It was because of the racism their ethnicity exposed them to that was reducing their capacity, if you like, to be able to cope with the excesses of the pandemic.
And how has the government in Wales responded to that? Because they've had a chance to look at this. What are they saying to you?
We've been fortunate in Wales that we have a government that allowed us the freedom to report our findings, and they have taken on board those findings, and that they have already initiated a number of developments to try to deal with it. For instance, we have a highly developed risk assessment tool, which was initially developed for health and social care, but that is now being extended to other sectors. We have improved communication on COVID-19 Keep Safe, the message that is now translated into, I think, 36 different languages to deal with that aspect of cultural suitability of healthcare services that we identified. We have a development of BME outreach posts and positions to try and help with tracking and tracing people. And we have an extended discussion on creating possibly a race disparity unit for Wales. The Deputy Minister and Chief Whip has already commissioned an advisory group to look into how we develop a race equality action plan for Wales. And there is a lot of work in that direction as we speak.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for taking us through that. Professor Emmanuel Ogbonna, who produced that report from Cardiff University.
We've been talking about the NHS app designed to trace people who have been in contact with those who are positive for coronavirus. Rob, who calls himself unmaterialistic, says, I'm texting on my old £10 school phone. I haven't got a TV, a PC, the libraries are shut. I can't get training on how to use this stuff. What about the likes of us? And Emma, on the other hand, from Oxford, says the app seems very easy to use. I installed it easily and just used it to read a QR code in my local library. I checked in successfully. Fingers crossed it helps us get a grip on this virus. Keep your thoughts coming in on that. It being Thursday, we're looking ahead to tomorrow on 5 Live. Ellis James and John Robbins are back tomorrow afternoon from 1. What's coming up?
Hello, it's Ellis James here from the Ellis James and John Robbins show. We've got a fun-packed programme for you planned. An amazing unsung hero from the Britpop era. We've also got a cracking made-up game, and also we'll be discussing your groups, guilds, different clubs you might be members of, because of a WhatsApp group that John has started over the past few weeks or so. We will be on with you after Adrian Chiles from 1pm tomorrow.
There we are. That is Ellis and John tomorrow from 1 o'clock here on 5 Live. Now, the Chancellor has tried to reassure people today with his new job support scheme. It'll help keep what he calls viable jobs going. That means jobs where people are back working at least a third of their normal hours.
Still lots of questions about this from employers and employees about how it will work, about what it means for people who are still at home on furlough, who aren't back at work. And also, keen to hear from you if your job perhaps has been suddenly deemed unviable. Maybe you didn't realise that. Maybe you held hopes of going back and now it's looking a bit more distant. Do get in touch. 85058 is the number to text us on. Jodie Hill is with us, Managing Director at employment law firm Thrive Law. Hello, Jodie.
Hi.
Hi, and Danny Houston is back from 5 Live Money. Hello, Danny.
Hello there.
So, a lot of these are, it is, to be fair, Danny, we mentioned this earlier, it is quite complicated because it depends what kind of sector you work in, what kind of hours you're doing. There's a lot to get your head around.
It is incredibly complicated, and it does very much depend on whether or not your employer can employ you for a minimum of 33% of the hours that you currently work. If they can't guarantee that, then this scheme just isn't for them at all.
So let's start with a question then. There's one from Gary on the text. Now, Gary owns a large kennel and cattery business. Obviously, the COVID restrictions on travel mean that people aren't going away, so that's had a big problem for Gary. He says, how does the new job support scheme affect the job retention scheme if the employee's hours drop below the £520 average pay to qualify the employer for claiming the £1,000 bonus? I think, says Gary, the employer won't qualify for the bonus. Jodie, do you want to take that one?
Sure. When I've looked at the guidance that's come out actually on the fact sheet, it does actually say that you'll still be able to claim the bonus, but they're releasing more information about that. So I'm not sure whether that eligibility will reduce as a result of that, obviously taking into account the 33%. But they've indicated that you can claim both at the same time.
Okay, so at the moment it looks positive, but as you say, maybe
does.
a bit of clarification, so keep an eye on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Hope that helps, Gary.
Let's speak, shall we, to Jonathan, who's given us a call from London. Hello, Jonathan.
Good afternoon.
Hi. So, what's your question? What's your point?
Well, it's not a question. It's just I work I did work in the events industry, and I have done for over 30 years. Of course, there's been no shows, no productions, no conferences now for over 6 months. We've been prevented from doing any work by government, and most of us understood, it's for the public good and for public health. It's 600,000 people. We generate more money for the exchequer than the car industry does. and we're now basically just being left out to rot. But most of us are either, there's so many of us as freelancers, as one-man limited companies or self-employed. We can't survive any longer, and I'd say the other thing, which is very important that people understand, is the £1.57 billion Arts Rescue Fund, which Boris Johnson mentioned yesterday in PMQs, does not come down to the supply chain companies. It doesn't come down to freelancers.
Yeah.
It's just being sat on by the Arts Council, and it will go to buildings and not people.
Jonathan, are you eligible for anything under this new scheme? Or what about the self-employed grant that's being extended?
I'm not self-employed. I'm a one-man limited company.
Right.
So basically, I've been surviving on furlough and money given to me by my parents, and I'm in the fortunate position of not having to pay a mortgage. That was already paid off. So now I can pretend that I'm working and claim 1/3, and then get 1/3 from the government. But basically, I'm one of these people who's on an absolute minimum PAYE. Can basically pay myself £700 a month.
So, Jodie, listening to Jonathan, is Jonathan one of those people when the Chancellor says, "I cannot save every job"? Does Jonathan sound like one of the?
You're not eligible for either of these. Obviously, you can use it if he's actually working, but if you're not working, then HMRC will be inspecting that, so you shouldn't be claiming that you're working and trying to use the scheme in that way. So you're right, ultimately there isn't anything there's a lot of people falling through the gaps, and limited companies have certainly been one of those.
Jonathan, just a final word about the events industry and theatres, that kind of thing. Is there a logic to say that when they can reopen and demand will be there, then these jobs will be available again? Are you saying that the companies who run these theatres won't be around?
These theatres won't be around, and you're just going to get a skills drain, people finding whatever work they can. I'm trying to, I'm applying to jobs in other sectors, but I'm just getting being told that I'm either too, they can't say too old anymore, but I'm too experienced. I've run my own company for ages, so it's not, they want juniors. They don't want people who've got a mind of their own and know how to run a company. So I lose out on that. Like I said, I've been looking in the construction sector, where even warehousing are being told that's no good. Basically, we can't hang on for another 6 months. The companies are closing now, or that. People, warehouses being shut down. I've seen on my social media today that an employer saying he's going to have to lay off all the staff. So, this afternoon, that's it. He's shutting his company down. That's another 25 people he's employed out.
Well, Jonathan, look, we wish you the best of luck in the future. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Like I said, 30 years of experience and skills, probably lost to the industry.
Yeah. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan Wood in central London. He won't be alone. That point that Anna made a moment ago about this issue about being told that it's about saving viable jobs, that is the moment of truth, isn't it, when you confront your employer, Jodie, in the next few days to find out that perhaps your job isn't viable. It's a stark truth.
It is indeed, and I think ultimately we're going to see a real shift as furlough comes to an end and employers trying to understand whether they can afford this 33% and obviously the top up as well. We will see a shift towards more redundancies. We've already seen loads of redundancies taking place, and understanding whether these roles are viable moving forward at time is now really very much of the essence.
David in Chester says, I'm the same as Jonathan. I work as a professional musician. I've had no income since March. All my gigs have been cancelled. I'll have lost £28,000 this year. As a text from Reg in Bristol, another question. He says, I'm a self-employed photographer whose work and income has been decimated because of the virus. Fortunately, I've qualified for the self-employed grant scheme. I was incredibly grateful for those. The announcement today said that the scheme will be extended, but the wording on similar terms is somewhat confusing. Does anyone know what the terms are or how long the extension will be for? Danny, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it's for 6 months from November 2020 to April 2021. And grants, similar to how they were before, are going to be paid in 2 lump sum instalments covering a 3-month period. So it's all those who are eligible for the grants the first time around, although they don't have to have claimed previous grants, but they do